Welcome to the Dire Wolf Show, where we believe that America is exceptional and that our constitutional rights should never be infringed. I am Dire Wolf. On our show, we bring you the truth and debunk fake news. If you love laughing at the insanity of the regressive left, sit back and relax. Boy, do I have a show for you.
All right, welcome back, Wolf Pack. Fox Trevies here for our semi-weekly Fox Fridays. Dire Wolf regrets not being with us tonight, but he said that he hates all you guys, so that's why he's not here. No, actually, he's just in chat trolling on me. Is his goal. So if you guys want to see Dire Wolf, he'll be in chat making fun of me, perhaps. But just because he's in chat does not mean that he's probably not at IHOP for the 5th time this week. So just keep that in mind. But just because Dire Wolf is not here, that does not mean I am alone, as tonight I am once again joined by Krieg Blackpaw. Welcome, Krieg. How you doing tonight?
Hi, Krieg Blackpaw, the lesser of the Dire Wolves. Yes, I'm here to talk about strange scandals and snorting coke off of hookers' butts.
Yes, but first, as fun as that sounds, before we get into snorting coke off of Ukrainian hookers, we have to thank our sponsors, which is you guys, viewers like you. Except for we're not PBS. We're actually supported by viewers like you, like by your consent. Whereas like PBS says that they're supported by viewers they're supported by viewers like you. But what they actually mean is that they're like by force. They're forcing you to support, like by like slaves. That's what it's called when you're forced to support somebody as slaves. It's taxation stuff. We would especially like to thank specific viewers, though, who support us financially, not by force, who include Kaylette, Ori Main, Nathan, Cameron, Tetris Freak, Slowpoke, Thundra Erikin, who is female, the White Lion, who's a lion, Timberwolf, who's a wolf, and, of course, the guy that started it all, Dire Wolf, who's probably eating his 3rd omelet at IHOP right now. Money is not the only way that you can give to us, though. We especially appreciate you liking and subscribing to us on DLive, Twitch, and YouTube for as long as we are still allowed to be there. Some of those platforms we'll talk about them later tonight. And we especially like it when you share links to this channel on any social media you have not been permabanned from, as we have no algorithm to do that for us. And I don't know. Maybe it's not safe to share our links anymore. You might be like marking yourself. I don't know. That's up to you guys to decide. So we'll move into tonight's topic. So Krieg kind of gave us a little preview of what we were going to talk about with hookers and cocaine and
hookers and blow
and Ukraine. all wonderful, wholesome stuff. So as you guys know, sure. Well, I don't know. Maybe you guys don't know. It's possible you guys don't know. So, I know a lot of you guys are out there who watch this show. You get your news from other sources in addition to the team here, which we appreciate and encourage. Some of you might not, though. And if you don't get your news from other sources, it's very possible that you guys didn't hear the story this week, because this story had an unprecedented level of censorship around it, which we're going to talk about later. But just to kind of preview it, like Twitter and Facebook suspended the account for the New York Post, which is like one of the oldest newspapers in America. I think it was started by like Alexander Hamilton, they said, like a long time ago.
Holy shit.
Yeah. The Twitter, Jack at Twitter was blocking links to house.gov, the website for Congress. House.gov was blocked by Twitter. They suspended the Trump campaign Twitter. Facebook was deranking and purging people from Instagram. There was a giant Instagram purge today. But it was all centered around the stories that we're going to be talking about tonight, because it was, we all knew, like we've all kind of cried censorship on the right. Censorship's almost a meme at this point. Everything's censorship. And technically it is, but the censorship, and we'll talk about this later, and Dyer and I will certainly talk about it again tomorrow. the censorship on this story is really unprecedented to the kind of censorship that we've seen before. Like I said, they really pulled out all the stops on that, and I'm going to tell you that I mean that, like I really mean that. Like this is fundamentally a different type of censorship than what we've ever seen before. It's at a whole new level of it. But we're going to talk about that later. But just take my word on it for now. Krieg will help me lay out the case for why the censorship this time is far different than it has been previous times. But before we get into all that censorship, what were they censoring? Well, so what we've got here, what we're going to do tonight, normally what we'd normally do is try to digest a story and just give you kind of our highlights from it that we would take, write like our opinion about it and give kind of a quick synopsis of what happened. Tonight we're going to be a little bit different, whereas we're going to be reading directly from the New York Post, the New York Post's articles. They've got 2 articles we're going to be reading tonight, and then we're also going to be watching a clip of Tucker Carlson's show last night. And the reason why is because these are the articles. I want to read them verbatim because these are the articles which is what caused Facebook and Twitter to pull out all the stops and censor them. And I don't want to risk missing something because again, it's kind of hard to get a hold of these things now because of the censorship. And I want to make sure that we're not missing anything. And I want to make sure that you guys can hear, what it is that I guess the big tech networks decided they did not want you to hear. And also all of the other media that is not the New York Post. So, again, this will be mostly verbatim. So from the New York Post, this came out on Wednesday morning, and it was the big story all day on Wednesday. And there was more revelations yesterday and today, but we'll get into those later. So the headline is, let's see here. Smoking gun email. Oh, look, a little dog's and a baby. Smoking gun email reveals how Hunter Biden introduced Ukrainian businessman to VP dad. So right out the bat there, again, kind of, it's easy to kind of have your eyes gloss over when we're going through this stuff. But yeah, just the keywords there. Hunter Biden introduced a Ukrainian businessman to his vice president dad. And so we'll go through and start reading what that story is. For your benefit, Krieg, read off of the Google Doc because I cut out certain sections of the article that were less interesting. So it'll be verbatim,
Roger.
But we are skipping sections.
You want me to read the highlighted portions?
Yes, sir. Okay, so Hunter Biden introduced his father, then Vice President Joe Biden, to a top executive at Ukraine energy firm less than a year before the elder Biden pressured government officials in Ukraine into firing a prosecutor who was investigating the company, according to emails obtained by the New York Post. The never-before-revealed meeting is mentioned in a message of appreciation that Vadim Pozarsky, an advisor to the board of Burisma, allegedly sent Hunter Biden on April 17th, 2015, about a year after Hunter joined the Burisma board at a reported salary of up to $50,000 per month. It's a lot of dough.
And for this quote, I really wish my Russian accent was up to par, but I'm not even going to try it. But this is from that advisor. Dear Hunter, thank you for inviting me to D.C. and giving me an opportunity to meet your father. And spend some time together. In reality, it's really an honor and a pleasure. The email reads, an earlier email from May 2014 shows Porshesky, reportedly Burisma's number 3 executive, asking Hunter for advice on how you could use your influence on the company's behalf. The Blockbuster correspondence, which flies in the face of Joe Biden's claim that he's never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings. Is contained in a massive trove of data recovered from a laptop computer. So Joe Biden was full of shit.
Yeah. That's going to be the theme tonight, and I think all the way up through the election here. Okay, so less than 8 months after, Pozolsky thanked Hunter Biden for the introduction to his dad, the then vice president, admittedly. So 8 months after Pezitsky thanked Hunter Biden for the introduction to his dad, the then vice president admittedly pressured Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko and Prime Minister Ainsley Yadzinski, I don't know about that one, into getting rid of Prosecutor General Viktor Shokin by threatening to withhold up to $1 billion U.S. loan guarantee during a December trip to Kiev in 2015. So to kind of translate that, the difficult to pronounce president of the Ukraine obviously is having a lot of issues over basically your guys' entire lifetimes, really regardless of how old you are. If you were born sometime after the Cold War, Ukraine's been having problems since then. They are, they went through a sort of civil war. They've had Russian incursions. They are the plaything between, that NATO and Russia. They're fighting over. It's like the two dogs with the rope toy fighting over.
I think they're still fighting too, aren't they?
There's still fighting going on. They are not a rich nation, and they are in the midst of they are a very, very key position for strategic location for the land for like Europe, and then just we like sticking it to Russia, and so does Europe, and Ukraine is one of the ways that we do that. So Ukraine gets pulled back and forth quite a bit, and they also are not a very rich nation. And part of the way that we get Ukraine to be on our side is that we help give them money, because it's not your tax dollars, it's everyone else's tax dollars. On a different reading of this might be that I kind of wish Biden had withheld that $1 billion, but that aside, it was morally or not, it was lawfully allocated by Congress to go to the Ukraine, and it was part of the foreign policy. It was meant to go to Ukraine to assist with foreign policy. Foreign policy is directly related to U.S. security. If you are going against what was lawfully mandated for foreign policy, you are, by all definition, going against what is creating security for America. If you are going against what is creating for security for America, you are creating a danger for America. So this $1 billion loan guarantee is that was something that we offered to Ukraine. It was kind of a quid pro quo. We were going to give them a $1 billion loan. I think it was zero interest, which is something that they really needed, and they were going to not cuck to Russia for us, which is kind of the deal. So Biden went over there and he told the president of Ukraine that they were not going to get this $1 billion unless they fired Viktor Shokin. And as it said in the article, Joe Biden, slightly after the 2016 election, this is in mid-2017, Joe Biden was recounting this incident. So this isn't an incident from the emails. This is an incident which you guys will probably recognize this clip. But Joe Biden is going to be recounting that time that he threatened to withhold $1 billion from the Ukraine unless the Ukrainian president did what he said to do. Let's listen.
I remember going over convincing our team, or others too, convincing us that we should be providing for loan guarantees. And I went over for, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I said, I'm not going to, or we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid.
Someone who wasn't going to be looking into Burisma. So, as we all just heard Biden say, he said, I looked at them and I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If that prosecutor is not fired, you're not getting the money. Biden infamously bragged this to the Council on Foreign Relations in 2018. I guess I was a little bit off on that year. Well, son of a bitch, he got fired. Shokin has said, Shokin is the guy he's the son of a bitch who got fired. Shokin, and again, Shokin was, well, as I'm about to read that. Shokin has said that at the time he was fired in March of 2016, he had made specific plans to investigate Burisma that, quote, included interrogations and other crime investigations that, quote, included interrogations and other crime investigation procedures into all members of the executive board, including Hunter Biden, end quote, because Hunter Biden was on the board of Burisma at that time. Joe Biden has insisted that the U.S. wanted Shokin removed over corruption concerns, which were shared by the European Union, and unreported in this is that it was also shared by Great Britain.
But meanwhile, an email dated May 12th, 2014, shortly after Hunter Biden joined the Burisma board, shows Poronsky attempting to get him to use his political leverage to help the company. The message had the subject line "urgent issue" and was also sent to Hunter Biden's business partner, Devon Archer, who also sat on the Burisma board at the time. Porzarsky said that the representatives of new authorities in power tend to quite aggressively approach NZ, unofficially with the aim to obtain cash from him. NZ isn't identified in the email, but appears to be a reference to Burisma founder Mykola Zalewski, whose first name is a Ukrainian version of Nicholas.
All right, so a lot of funny names in this, which has been the consistent problem, along with the Trump Russia hoax and then the Ukrainian thing. Because this is all, for your guys' information, this is all talking about the Ukrainian corruption that Trump had mentioned around this time last year, and then launched the entire impeachment thing. The entire impeachment thing was launched because they thought Trump was being too curious about if Biden and his family were corruptly acting in Ukraine. That the entire thing was about Trump asking about what they were doing in Ukraine because he was suspicious of it. This entire story backs up what Trump's suspicions were. I don't know if he's got an instinct of it or if it was a lucky guess. I think it was a combination of both, but this 100% backs up every suspicion that Trump had that would ultimately lead to the impeachment saga that we went through the last year. So just keep that all in mind. Because of all the names being a little bit silly, the important thing to remember is all of these Russian names are either Ukrainian names are either Ukrainian officials in the government that Biden is pressuring, or they are Ukrainian businessmen that are in Burisma that are working with Hunter. And then also there's Shokin, who is the Ukrainian investigator that was about to investigate all of the other Ukrainians that were on the board with Hunter Biden and Biden Sr. So I had a lot of Bidens here. Joe was pressuring all of the Ukrainian government officials to fire that prosecutor or that investigator so that he wouldn't be able to investigate the company that Hunter was on the board of. So, and go ahead.
Yeah, and like in addition, like I know that like the left is right now is making the big argument that like, oh well, the European Union and Great Britain said that he was a dirty, rotten crook and had nothing to do with Hunter Biden firing him because his son worked in Burisma. Well, look, I mean, who cares? It doesn't matter because look, if his son wasn't doing dirty business dealing, okay, why is a cokehead from America who happens to be the son of the vice president of the most powerful country in the world who can't speak Ukrainian on the board of a Ukrainian gas company? It doesn't make any sense. If he didn't put his son in this precarious position in the first place, then there wouldn't be all this speculation. And, it definitely looks dirty. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it wasn't dirty. Maybe he did fire him based on the European Union suggestion. But we'll never know.
Well, actually, we will know because these emails explain explicitly what it was. That is, which maybe you haven't quite seen yet. So when we get to the Tucker segment, so Tucker had a an exclusive, and Tucker actually has emails that are from Burisma executives, which is a little bit of a preview for later in the show. Tucker Carlson had an exclusive last night that there was emails from Burisma executives sent to Hunter Biden specifically requesting that Hunter Biden get his dad to get the prosecutor off the back of Burisma. Within like 2 or 3 weeks, I can't remember, we'll go through the Tucker clip and Tucker will say all the specifics. But within like 2 or 3 weeks is when that when that story happened that Biden pressured them and got the prosecutor fired. So we now have the emails that show Burisma who was paying Hunter a salary of $50,000 a month. Burisma asked Hunter to ask his dad to get that prosecutor off their backs, and 14 days later, Biden Sr., Joe Biden, gets that prosecutor fired by leveraging $1 billion of your taxpayer dollars to do that. So
my overall point though is like if you put it to the Trump test, right? Could you imagine like if like Donald Trump Jr. was over there and he was on the board of a Ukrainian gas company? Dude, the Democrats would hem him up even without those additional emails. Trump would be impeached all over again just because of the suspicion.
Yeah. So we'll probably get into that a little bit later, but there is all of this smoking gun evidence of all this stuff going on, and the the evidence for Trump Russia was what we now know to be a entirely fabricated Russian disinformation that Hillary Clinton bought from Russia and was entirely fabricated. And the FBI knew that Hillary Clinton was working on fabricating a Trump-Russia hoax, and they also knew that Russia was aware of that and was willing to feed her information on it to help her make stuff. So we now know that it was flimsy at the best. And there was nothing that was verifiable in it. It was completely unverifiable. It was flimsy story. It didn't quite make sense with a lot of stuff that we know about Trump and like his, germaphobe stuff, especially. And there was certain statements of fact in the paper that we know for a fact did not happen in reality, just because people were not in the places the Steele dossier said that they were at the time. We knew for a fact when we investigated it that they were actually in different parts of the world. This is fundamentally different because this is not some dossier that some opposition research company drew up. These are raw emails from Hunter Biden. So we kind of skipped over the origin point for these emails because it's much less interesting than what the actual emails say. But the origin for these emails is Hunter Biden had a MacBook that he dropped in the water somehow, and he took it to a repair store, not an Apple store. People are getting that wrong, that they think it was an Apple store. It was a private non-Apple branded repair shop, just like a regular computer repair company. Somebody, maybe not Hunter, somebody dropped this laptop off to get fixed. The company had the deal that you pay for it after it's fixed, so they dropped it off, and then nobody came back to pick it up, and the owner of the computer repair company could not get a hold of whoever dropped it off. So that is where these emails came from. And when you drop off a device at a place like that, if you abandon it, it then becomes the property of the business owner, and so this laptop became the property of which. That has had some legal challenges to it, but it's kind of irrelevant. The important part is that these emails came off of that laptop that was abandoned at a computer shop that was in Biden's hometown. So, regardless of that, so these are emails. They were allegedly from a Hunter Biden laptop. They've been verified to be on the correct email address for Hunter Biden. The things the events that the emails talk about have been verified from multiple different angles. And we'll try and go through some of that. There's a lot of emails here. So there's like tens of thousands of emails, and that's just from this one laptop. There was actually late breaking today, which we're going to not talk about today, but Dyer and I might talk about it tomorrow. There was another set of tens of thousands of emails from a completely different source that Breitbart was given just this evening, about like 6 p.m. Eastern, like a few hours ago. So this is a lot of content to sift through. And it is, again, you have to kind of line it up with the entire history of the world over the last decade. It's a lot of stuff to cover. So some of it, one of the reasons why we're not going to go through everything in perfect detail is because it's stuff that's been talked about a lot. And, you guys probably have a general understanding of some of these stories, especially after going through the Ukraine scandal and impeachment and stuff like that. You'll recognize some of these things coming up, but this has all been much more verified than anything, like much more verified than anything that they've ever thrown at Trump. And I think that's the point that you're trying to make.
Yeah, definitely. And did you see Crowder's interview yesterday with Giuliani?
I did. It was,
that was great. So he showed the laptop, and he even himself said that I guess the lawyer tried to call in and claim the laptop.
Yes.
For Hunter Biden.
Yeah, so the lawyer
which pretty much confirmed it.
Yeah, so Hunter Biden's lawyer called the computer repair shop and said that they would like to reclaim ownership of the laptop, which maybe you should not have done that. I think that you have the right to remain silent, and that kind of verifies it. You also have the Biden campaign has given very carefully worded responses to it. Very few responses, but very carefully worded ones, which I think Dyer and I might cover a little bit tomorrow. Again, this is a big story, and it's kind of a meta story because it's a big story on its own, and then there's a second layer story in that how hard the media and social media tried to censor it. So hopefully for any of you guys who may have missed the initial thing just because of the censorship. I mean, it's not even, you can be paying attention pretty hard and have missed this because of how much it was censored. So now that you're aware of it, we're trying to give you the quick primer on it. And by reading through the articles, you are highly encouraged, now that you know what to look for, to go out and find out more information about it, because there's more emails coming out every day. So this came out on Wednesday. The initial set did. There was another set released by the Post on Thursday. Today there was last night Tucker had a unique set that he was working off of, and then this evening Breitbart attained another unique source of emails. There is a lot of emails going around here. It's a really big story that we wouldn't even hope to try to get through all of it on this show. You'd have to have like a 24-hour live stream probably to get through it all. But you guys are certainly encouraged to go out there and try and connect the dots for yourselves. So back to the article. So where we were at is Biden had just said that he was going to be, telling Ukraine, we're not giving you the $1 billion unless you get rid of this prosecutor, and son of a bitch, they got rid of that prosecutor. Here. So, and then you were reading. So what were you reading again? Let's refresh what you were reading.
So I had just finished this section.
Okay.
So that's now.
All right. So when the alleged shakedown had failed, they proceeded with concrete actions in the form of one or more pretrial proceedings, Pazowski wrote. Quote, "We urgently need your advice on how to use your influence to convey a message/signal to, etc., to stop what we consider to be politically motivated actions," he added. So this part, back to what Krieg was reading too. This is going into after, still during the same issue, but these emails are talking about they want Hunter to try to figure out, can he use Hunter's influence? Because these emails are to Hunter. Can Hunter use his influence to convey a message to stop what we consider to be politically motivated actions? Those politically motivated actions being the investigation from Ukraine into Burisma. So we kind of skipped through this part because this part gets kind of a little bit not off topic, but just into a topic that's less interesting. But the rest of this section of the article would go on to describe issues that Burisma was having in Ukraine surrounding new tax policies that the Ukrainian government was trying to institute. And it's really boring, but the long story short of it is that they wanted Hunter to use his contact at the State Department and to tell the U.S. and the State Department and his dad that the new taxes would try to convince U.S. policymakers that the new taxes would kill off Burisma, which is an energy company. And the hope around that was that the U.S. officials would step in on behalf of Burisma to stop the new taxes, which, if I understand this correctly, as I said earlier, the U.S. interest in Burisma and in Ukraine is to keep Burisma going because it is a source of non-Russian energy for Europe. So if they can convince Hunter to try to spin these taxes are going to kill off Burisma, when realistically it was just going to be annoying and it might have reduced their executive compensation packages, but it wasn't going to kill them off. And so they're trying to use Hunter to leverage his influence with the U.S. policymakers to then try to go back to Ukraine and say, hey, can you guys not put taxes on the Burisma? The U.S. would really appreciate that. And because Ukraine's a little podunk country that, is for all intents and purposes, is nearly a U.S. protectorate. They would be very receptive to that, and they would, if the U.S. asked them to stop taxing Burisma, there's a really good chance that the Ukraine would stop taxing Burisma.
Yeah, and in addition to that, the whole Russian influence of the gas. Don't forget that that's pretty much what the entire point of going into Syria was too, because the U.S. wanted to circumnavigate the Russians' oil going through that way.
Unfortunately, and this again was encouraged a route of research for you guys. Unfortunately, going into all of the complexity of what the Ukraine means on the foreign stage is a very, very complicated topic. Maybe we'll do that one day, but it's not something we did tonight, and it's something that's very difficult to understand. It's got a lot of complexities, and really the implications of it are a matter of opinion, depending on what kind of depending on your level of neocon. There's a lot of Ukraine's a very interesting place for the foreign stage, so it's definitely a piece that gets moved around a lot, and that's one of the reasons why they are so susceptible to corruption from people like the Bidens.
Depending on how John Bolton you are.
Yes. While you read this, I'll be right back. I'm going to grab water.
Okay. All right. So in addition to denying that he's outspoken to Hunter Biden about his overseas business dealings, Joe Biden has repeatedly denied any conflict of interest or wrongdoing by either of them involving Burisma. Last Friday, he got testy during an appearance on NBC's Today when a co-host, Savannah Guthrie, questioned whether it was wrong for Hunter to take the position, knowing that it was really because that the company wanted access to you. Well, that's not true. You're saying things you just don't know what you're talking about, the elder Biden responded. God. Last December, Joe Biden also lashed out during a Democratic primary town hall event in Iowa where a man accused him of sending Hunter to Ukraine to get a job and work for a gas company he had no experience with gas or nothing in order to get access to the president.
This is a good video. We'll watch this
the clip.
We all know Trump has been messing around in Ukraine over there, holding their foreign aid for them to come up saying they're going to investigate you. We know all about that crap. And he's no backbone. We know that for that. But you, on the other hand, sent your son over there to get a job and work for a gas company that he had no experience with gas or nothing, in order to get access for the president. So you're selling access to the president just like he was.
So you're a damn liar, man. That's not true. And no one has ever said that. No one has done that. You see it on the TV. No, I know you do. And by the way, that's why I'm not sedentary. I get up and no, let him go. Let him go. Look, the reason I'm running is because I've been around a long time and I know more than most people know. And I can get things done. That's why I'm running. And you want to check my shape on it, let's do push-ups together here, man. Let's run. Let's do whatever you want to do. Let's take an RT test. Number two, no one has said my son has done anything wrong, and I did not on any occasion. And no one has ever said it. Not
I
one.
didn't say you were doing anything wrong.
You said I set up my son to work in an oil company. Isn't that what you said? Get your words straight, Jack.
That's what I hear on MSNBC.
You don't hear that in MSNBC. You did not hear that. But you heard. Look, okay, I'm not going to get in an argument with you, man.
No, I don't want to.
Well, yeah, you do. But look, Fat, look, here's the deal. Here's the deal.
It looks like you don't have any more backbone than Trump does.
Any other questions?
Yeah, all right.
Absolute wreck.
I'm not voting.
Well, I knew you weren't, man. You think I thought you'd stand up and vote for me? You're too old to vote for me.
Jeez.
Holy shit.
So vicious. And well, you know, reading through these emails and the story, I think we can kind of understand why he's so vicious. Is because anybody sniffing a little too close to this is a massive risk to the Biden family. So, you know, the key quotes from that was, you're a damn liar, man. That's not true. No one has ever said that. Biden fumed, which he's going to be eating those words pretty soon here. Well, he's eating the words right now. He's just, he's not talking at all. Which is that's been discussed as their strategy. The Biden campaign largely has not responded to this at all, which we might get into that a little bit tonight. But there's a lot of meta aspects to the story. There is the story itself, and then there is the response to the story, which is as much of a story as the story itself. And it's kind of hard to keep those straight because they're both important, but I don't want to take away from the what tonight's discussion is supposed to be, which is supposed to be more about what the actual substance of the story is and not necessarily the meta-narrative, which we will get into the meta-narrative like later in the story, like later in the show tonight, but not right now. Okay, so Biden, as we saw, he continued berating the man as he stepped forward, called the man fat, and challenged him to do push-ups together, man. Oh boy,
Fox, let's do push-ups together next time we have a disagreement. We'll just we'll push it out.
I think we both talk a good game, but I think that we both would be highly embarrassed at our performance.
Without a doubt.
The FBI referred questions. Okay, so the FBI referred questions about the seizure of the laptop and the hard drive to the Delaware attorney's office, where a spokesperson said, "My office can neither confirm nor deny the existence of investigation." So that's important there. So the FBI, which I don't think of this article. Yes, it does, the article. So the FBI has had a copy of these emails since December 2019. So think about that. What was going on in December 2019? Oh, yeah. We had impeachment going on in December 2019. And what was the topic of the impeachment? As I said earlier today, the topic of impeachment was around Trump being a little too curious about what was going on with the Bidens and Ukraine. And they were going to impeach him over that. And in December of 2019, the FBI had tens of thousands of emails that proved that Trump's suspicions were very well founded and probably even true and probably even worse than what Trump thought. And the FBI has been sitting on that and they haven't done anything with it. And we're not sure if they've actually were planning on doing anything with that. So the line I had just read is the New York Post knew that the FBI had a copy of this because the computer store owner that they got it from, they had given it to the FBI first. He had given a copy of the hard drive to the FBI in December. He had kept a copy for himself, and then after seeing the FBI not do anything about it and the continued shenanigans of impeachment and all the lies going around about what Hunter and Biden was doing in Ukraine, he decided that he needed to, this computer store owner decided that he needed to get it out there a different way because obviously the FBI wasn't going to do anything with it. So now that we know that the FBI has been sitting on a copy of this since December of 2019, and they didn't jump into the House Intel Committee and say, hey, maybe you guys should stop this impeachment thing because we have some new information that kind of exonerates Trump. They just sat there and didn't do anything with it. Let's see here. So the House Intel Committee, which is now controlled by Republicans, no, it's actually not. I think it was just, no, it's not controlled by Republicans. So it must have just been a committee member. The Republican committee members requested that the FBI send them all the information that they have on this laptop and what they've been doing with it since December of 2019. Did they look through it? Have they been planning an investigation? Why were they or were they not planning an investigation? All of that stuff. So the FBI's got a lot of explaining to do, because if this was something, the FBI, like, they shifted the entire direction of the whole bureau. The entire bureau was dedicated 100 agents over the course of the Crossfire Hurricane investigation. They directed the entirety of the FBI to dig into a dossier that they knew was fabricated. And then they get this giant laptop that proves every conspiracy theory about Biden's corruption is all sitting there, all the proof for it. And I don't know. I'd be curious to know what kind of resources they put into that. If I had to guess, it would be not a whole lot. I bet you that the laptop's been sitting there for a while. I would actually be surprised that the laptop's been sitting there for a while, because I would be highly unsurprised if this laptop that incriminates Biden in a massive, massive corruption scandal, I'd be very surprised if that was sitting around at the FBI for nearly a year and somebody did not destroy it. I would be willing to bet that when the House gets their answers as to what the FBI was doing with that laptop, I'd be willing to bet that the information on it's corrupted. I bet you the FBI comes back and says, oh, we couldn't do anything with it because it was deleted or it was corrupted or something happened to it.
Guaranteed.
That is my prediction. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but I would be extremely unsurprised if that's what happens.
Yeah, dude, I don't even know. I don't even know where we go from here with the FBI. I mean, just this is an embarrassment, an absolute embarrassment that they had this for that long and they did nothing with it. I don't even know what to say. It's pretty shocking.
Yeah, so Dave Duff in chat saying that there's Giuliani said that he's got big stuff coming 10 days before the election, which I believe is, I think it's like 10 or 12 days from now. It's pretty, I think it's at the end of the next week. But what we've been seeing so far is the Washington Post, or the New York Post, I keep saying the Washington Post, New York Post, they still have emails that they're sending out. So like they had their first group. They've been kind of releasing them in topic batches. So like the first article had a certain topic of emails. Their next article has another topic of emails. They released yesterday another topic of emails. Then Tucker, he got some of these emails and he released an exclusive of, it was the same batch of emails, but he released an exclusive where he was going through a different topic in the emails. And there's so many emails that you can do full stories and full news cycles on just a topic because there's so much volume to go through on these emails. And then, like I said, now we've got a new source from Breitbart. Breitbart has obtained a completely new source of emails that are number in the tens of thousands, and they will probably be doing the same thing. But as David Duff points out, Rudy Giuliani said that there is a specific thing that he held back that is even worse than all the stuff that's already out, and he is planning on releasing that 10 days before the election, which is that's a hell of a thing.
So anyway, so Hunter Biden's lawyer then refused to comment on the specifics, but instead asked Giuliani. He's been pushing widely discredited conspiracy theories about the Biden family, openly relying on actors tied to the Russian intelligence, the lawyer George R. Miziris said of Giuliani. Pozarski and the Joe Biden campaign did not return requests for comment. Hochstein could not be reached. When did we talk about Hochstein?
I think that is the campaign manager.
Oh, I see.
I think. Yeah, so so the Biden campaign has been kind of just not talking about it. The biggest statement that they've made on it was rather interesting. So, Craig's going to get more into this a little bit later, but we got a whole other New York Post article to read through first. But a little preview of what Craig's going to talk about is, so as we said, Twitter was censoring the story immediately to the point where they were not letting you share links to it, and they locked down the New York Post Twitter account. So Twitter said that they were locking it down because it was an unverified story, and they didn't want to spread misinformation. But they hadn't fact-checked it yet. They were just guessing that it was misinformation, or rather, I think that they knew it was true information. They were just pretending that it was misinformation. But then the Biden campaign, they made a statement that because they weren't going to respond to it, that because Twitter had said that it was misinformation, they don't feel the need to respond to it because it's already been shown to be misinformation. But that's circular reasoning. Twitter just said that it was misinformation, and the Biden campaign goes, well, I guess it's misinformation because Twitter said it. And then now Twitter is going to use that because now that statement is now on the record. Now Twitter can recite that and say, it's been said to be misinformation by the Biden campaign. We now have the citation that we need to prove that it's misinformation, and you now have a circular cytogenesis of misinformation, which is just completely untrue.
Yeah, there's been no credible evidence thus far saying anything that how any of this is untrue. It's just it's so bad.
Sorry for flipping back and forth, guys. I lost which article I was supposed to be on. Okay, so our next article is Hunter Biden emails show leveraging connections with his father to boost Burisma pay. So the previous one was about Burisma using Hunter Biden and paying him to get specific actions from the U.S. The U.S. is very powerful on the foreign stage. It's not just about money. It's about power and influence and the ability to get a prosecutor fired that is looking at investigating your company. So that's like an activity that they wanted. And then this story is more about the money and how much money that they're sending back and forth and what the money is for. So Hunter Biden discussed, again, we're reading verbatim off the article here. Hunter Biden discussed leveraging his connection to his father in a bid to boost his pay from a Ukraine natural gas company, Burisma, according to an email he sent around the time he joined the firm's corporate board. In a lengthy memo to his then business partner, Devin Archer, who already sat on the Burisma board, Hunter Biden, repeatedly mentioned, quote, "my guy," while apparently referring to then Vice President Joe Biden. So one of the things that this article doesn't touch on, but has been confirmed by other people reading through the emails, is that Hunter Biden will very often refers to Joe Biden as my guy or the guy or guy. Maybe it's an attempt at coded language. Maybe it's just a friendly thing that he does. Maybe it's just kind of like a pet name. But them in this particular email where it says my guy, it is consistent with other emails that Hunter Biden refers to Joe Biden as my guy. So in this email, which I think Krieg's going to get through an excerpt on that. But basically what you're going to end up hearing is that Hunter Biden is going to, offer something and say, I'll get my guy to do it. And, you give me the money. And then basically it's going to go ahead and go through and show that they're offering specific access to the White House in exchange for payment.
Yep. Under President Barack Obama, the elder Biden, makes him sound like a Mormon. Yes. The elder Biden was the point person for U.S. policy toward Ukraine. And he held a press conference with then Prime Minister Arseniy. On April 22nd, 2014. Hunter Biden's email to Archer is dated a little more than a week later. The announcement of my guy's upcoming travel should be characterized as a part of our advice and thinking. But what he will say and do is out of our hands, Hunter Biden wrote on April 13, 2014. In other words, it could be a really good thing, or it could end up creating too great an expectation. We need to temper the expectations regarding that visit.
So what you described there was, and that was quotes out of the email, which you guys can read up on screen here. The Biden or Hunter Biden is discussing with one of his business partners that his guy is about to travel. Again, his guy being Biden, Joe Biden, and we can confirm from, and other people have done this, we can confirm from the White House logs, which are archived and available publicly, that Joe Biden's travel schedule at that time. And we know from those logs that Joe Biden was scheduled to travel to the Ukraine. And so this lines up that his guy has planned travel, which is what this seems to be referring to. And that's, again, verified by secondary sources, that Biden was going to be indeed traveling there. And it appears that the Ukrainians have some expectations, and they probably are doing a real big ask. And Hunter's saying, "Well, we can give you some of that, but I want to make sure that we temper down expectations. We can't make this too overt, or maybe we'll get caught. Like if I leave my laptop at a somewhere for a year." So that's what this discussion is. It's kind of a negotiation back and forth as to what it is that the Ukrainians should expect from this visit. And we'll get into what the money, because you guys can kind of see on the screen here too. We'll get into that in a second here. There was a talk of a negotiation of both price and tempering that expectation as to what was going to be given in exchange for that price, which is a classic negotiation. So the email that you're seeing on screen right now, labeled "From Robert Biden," Hunter's first name. Really? I didn't know his first name was Robert. Is among a trove of messages, documents, photos, and videos purportedly recovered from a MacBook Pro laptop that a Delaware computer shop owner told the Post was brought in for repair in April of 2019 and never picked up. In the email that you guys can see on screen, Hunter Biden wrote to Archer, quote, "We need to ask for long-term agreement across the board participation. This is a huge step for us that could easily become very complicated. And if we are not protected financially, regardless of the outcome, we could find ourselves frozen out of a lot of current and future opportunities."
The contract should begin now, not after the upcoming visit of my guy. That should include a retainer in the range of $25K PM, with additional fees where appropriate for much more in-depth work go to the BSF for our protection. Complete separate from our respective deals, reboard participation. It's unclear if Hunter Biden or Archer got any of the $2,000 or $25,000 a month mentioned. Hunter Biden was reportedly paid as much as $50,000 a month by Burisma before his lawyer said he stepped off the board in April 2019. That move came amid increasing scrutiny about potential conflicts of interest involving his dad, who announced his candidacy for president that same month.
So to try and translate some of that, because as a little bit wordy of an email, it's got some abbreviations and shorthands in there that are make it a little unclear as to what's going on. So to be clear, what these excerpts are showing is that Hunter is expecting that some kind of money will be coming into him and his business partner as a result of a meeting that he set up with, quote, his guy, who is, again, widely believed to be Joe Biden. So Hunter's expecting money to come in as a result of the meeting with his guy, as a result of the meeting with Joe Biden. And Hunter, in this email, is saying, well, I think it'd be a much better deal for us if they just paid up front. They should pay us up front, which is, again, this is a negotiation, which is like, what you're seeing is the sausage being made of a financial crime. You are seeing the negotiation of not just, hey, we'll give you money if you get your dad to do this stuff for us. They're negotiating back and forth with it, and Hunter's trying to squeeze more money out of them and give them less stuff from Joe Biden, which is classic negotiation tactics. You always want to be, whenever you're negotiating with a company, you want to be trying to get more money out of them and giving them less stuff. That's prime negotiation tactics, and that's exactly what we see right here. We see Hunter's trying to increase the amount that they're giving him. He wants to get it early. He wants to get it ahead of time so that they can kind of prove their loyalty to him. And then he also wants to be tamping down their expectations of what they should expect to get from Joe. He wants to make sure that he's giving them less while getting more money. This is the negotiation. That's I keep repeating myself, but it's trying to make it clear just how big of a deal this is. That this is Hunter Biden negotiating the price on selling his father's influence. That's big. What I just said might be one of the biggest things that's happened with the U.S. government since maybe even I can't remember what the fuck. What was the
Watergate?
No, what was the place that got Hillary Clinton let them all die? Fuck.
Benghazi?
Yes, Benghazi. This is probably like as big of a scandal, like probably maybe even a little bit bigger. Benghazi's like bigger because like a bunch of good people died and like Hillary like let them and like killed them. It was probably like the biggest scandal since that though. Maybe it's bigger. I don't know. It's pretty
my personal opinion, when you rope in like all of the social media censoring, because this is all part of the same part of the ship, part of the crew kind of thing. Like this is bigger than Watergate. Like this is enormous. Like what happened, what is happening, and what has happened here.
Well, the thing with the kind of slightly off topic here, the thing with the Trump-Russia investigation, which we now know was the sourcing of it was fabricated. We know that the FBI and the CIA were aware that they were explicitly aware that Hillary was fabricating this document. And then when they received it, they pretended like they didn't remember that she was fabricating it, and they started investigating it as if it was real. That was literally Watergate. Watergate was Nixon illegally using the power of the federal government to investigate his rival. The Trump-Russia thing was literally a verbatim repetition of the Watergate scandal. It was the exact same thing, only a lot worse. This probably rises close to that, but as Krieg's saying, these are all networked together. Their Trump-Russia investigations networked into Hillary's corruption. That's all networked into Biden's corruption because they were all corrupt together under the same White House. Biden's running, in my opinion, because it's for the same reason that Hillary was running in 2016, where she needed to win to cover up the corruption of the Obama administration that she helped with. Biden is running this year to cover up his corruption. That they are both trying to win, because if they can win, then they can keep that stuff hidden. If they don't win, well, I guess they can count on the Democrats to cause as much trouble in the House and Senate as they can possibly do. And they can also count on the Republicans to sit there and do nothing for 4 years. But all that aside, that is what we're seeing right now. And yeah, I mean, the network of it is definitely bigger than Watergate. It's definitely bigger than Benghazi. And that's why it's such a difficult topic to cover, is because to properly get a map of what's going on, to properly get a sense of what's going on, you have to make one of those crazy conspiracy boards where you're like pinning articles to your wall and using string and thumbtacks and all that kind of stuff, and you're sticky notes everywhere and you're just going nuts. It's such a broad conspiracy, and it's not that there's any one person directing it all. It's just a giant, because the federal government has been allowed to get so big, it's able to do all this stuff in secret. And it's just a bunch of people who want to defend the current bigness of it, the current power that they have, and also make sure that they help get people in office that will expand their power. It's just it's as simple as a bunch of people want to get as much power for themselves as possible. And all of this, like, that can be the only motivation, and it explains all of this. But it doesn't change the fact that it's a lot of interconnected stories and scandals that are that the mainstream media just does not want to talk about them ever. The FBI does not want to investigate them ever. The Democrats do not want to address it ever. And every time Trump talks about it, because the longer they keep it hidden and the more and more layers they add to it, the crazier and crazier we sound when we try to explain it. This story sounds crazy. I just told you guys, we are reading emails that are making the sausage of negotiations, negotiating the specific price for influence of the vice president of the United States. That's crazy. That's insane. And because of the way that Twitter and Facebook censored this stuff, a lot of people didn't see this stuff. So they're not, when you go out and tell them, I just went through this with one of my good friends I was talking to before the show, and I was asking him if he had heard about this, and he said no. And I was trying to explain it to him, and I realized, like, while I'm explaining it to him, and I'm doing the same thing with you guys, like, this stuff sounds crazy. And I was trying to explain to him, like, kind of meta-narrative, like, I know that this sounds crazy, but I'm literally telling you something that was reported on by the New York Post, one of the oldest newspapers in America, and you just haven't seen it because they censored one of the oldest newspapers in America, which is nuts. That's nuts.
Yeah. And you know, I don't know. We should just move on because it's just really frustrating.
Yeah.
on how fucked it all is and how fucked we all are. You know, and this isn't. We're not even on this. None of this scandal is even about the Obama administration spying on Trump to gain an advantage in the election.
Yeah.
This isn't even about that, and that's Watergate by itself.
Yeah, it's and what's hard is because there's so many interconnected scandals and they're all working to cover each other up. It's really hard to even address one of them. If you try to address the FBI, the media attacks you. If you try to address the media, the FBI attacks you. If you try to address previous corruption, the media and the FBI attack you. It's really, really hard to get a handle on this because you can't. There's not even anywhere to start. That's why it would be lovely if some of the fucking Republicans in Congress, I know that they don't have the House right now. They barely have the Senate, but there's 500 people in Congress and half of them are Republicans. That's like 250 Republicans in DC. And we hear from like, we got the A team. We got like 10 of them that we regularly hear from and are regularly going to bat for, anti-corruption of the Democrats. We can all probably name five Republicans in the House, maybe 5 more in the Senate. You might recognize by sight 10 or 15 more, but beyond that, you can't name the other 180 of them. And it's because they don't freaking do anything. They're worse than the Democrats in the sense that sure, they're a reliable voting pattern, but they're nothing more than that. I don't know. That's a problem. You got this is way off topic, but you got like Lindsey Graham complaining about he's underwater in his election. He's up for re-election in a few weeks here, and he was he didn't have enough campaign money coming in. He was kind of worried that it was slipping in the polls, and he's like, hey, he was calling on the national Republicans like, hey, I need some help in this race. And it's like, yeah, okay, we want to make sure we don't let that seat flip blue, but I don't know.
But why?
Yeah,
what does it even matter anymore?
Yeah, like does Lindsey Graham actually deserve to represent the Republican Party? Now he's kind of hit or miss depending on the topic. He was pretty good this week in the ACB hearings, so I kind of give him a pass. But still, the principle is, I don't even know what hell state he's from, but you telling me that there's not another goddamn Republican in his
South
district
Carolina.
or conservative that could run against him? These guys got to start getting primaried out. We had a chance with the Tea Party. We kind of let that slip away. The media and the Democrats, turned that into that was the first iteration of Nazis with the Tea Party and your little old ladies waving American flags were white supremacists, skinheads basically. The Tea Party, if you guys remember way back to your early 2010s, they primaried a bunch of establishment Republicans out, and I kind of like to see that something like that happen again. Maybe if Trump wins, or even if he loses, I'd like to see. I keep hearing that people are trying to make the lion the symbol of the Trump party. I kind of would not mind if there was some kind of movement. I certainly would like Trump to get reelected. Whether he gets elected or not, I would like to see over the next 4 years the development of maybe the Lion Party would be interesting. Something organized.
Would be sick.
Something organized to get these do-nothing Republicans or inconsistent conservatives out of Congress, because as much as these problems are caused by the Democrats, they are allowed to happen by the Republicans.
All I'm going to say is I'm going to meet my congressman tomorrow, and I'm definitely going to come prepared, and I'm going to light a fire under his ass because I've had about enough of this, and he's quite the sleepy gentleman, and he got elected uh, just last or just he just came into office for the first time in 2018. So I mean, he's got to get off his ass. Like, we don't see anything. I mean, I don't know. Maybe the media is that good, but I don't know. Like, they don't do anything. Like, this is worse than Watergate. This is the scandal of the country's history.
The Democrats can, based off of a completely fabricated 20-page document, they can launch 2 years of FBI investigations, followed by another 2 years of separate investigations by the special counsel. They can launch an impeachment off of it. They can do 4 years of all the craziest investigation powers of the federal government possible against somebody. They can leverage all of that off of 20 pages of complete fiction. And the Republicans can't do anything. They can't get anything done when they have something like 100,000 emails now. Again, what I read you, what I'm showing on screen here, this is explicitly negotiating the price for what kind of influence. Hunter is the negotiator, negotiating how much money they're going to give him for influence that his vice president father can provide the Ukraine. And the Republicans can't do anything with that. They can't. They can request some hearings. They can. I'm sure that they'll yell at the hearings real good. They'll get some real good sound bites, and they'll be like, "Oh man, like wow, look at Lindsey Graham really giving it to him in the hearing." And then when it comes to like doing something that's not showboating in the hearing, we'll get nothing.
I know we briefly talked about this before the stream. I mean, but what is this other than sedition? I mean, selling our company, our country's national security, our country's influence for your own personal gain. I'm sorry. Is that not sedition? Is that not treason? Is that not an abuse of the role that you took on? Is that not an abuse of your oath? I don't know. I took an oath to defend the country when I joined the military, and if I did anything close to this, I'd be in Leavenworth, faster than you could say Article 15. Like,
yeah.
It'd be over.
Well, Dyer, on that note, Dyer and I were talking about, remembering all the shenanigans at the impeachment hearings, and we remembered a particular LT Colonel Vindman, who I think that amid these revelations, it now appears that everyone that was testifying on behalf of the Bidens at those impeachment hearings, including Vindman, were helping cover for Biden, which would make them an accessory to this. So,
absolutely.
As for the rest of them, I don't know. But Dyer and I had some, there is some military punishments for the type of things that Vindman is purported to have done. Special to the military. It's a little bit different when you're in the military. The legal system's slightly different for you. There's some things that could happen to Colonel Vindman due to his involvement in helping cover this up, and those things should happen to him. After he's had a tribunal of his peers.
Yeah, I mean, all of these people need to be put. Biden needs to be put on trial for this, and his son too. This is not to mention. I mean, the classified information likely that was probably. I mean, I'm sure that's coming up here in an email. I mean, I would be surprised.
Oh, you think that'd be a good one? Yeah, I don't know what the hell Giuliani is holding back on, but that would be a good one if there was some kind of sale of anything that was classified or plausibly classified. Yeah. That'd be interesting.
I'm sure it's there. I wouldn't put it past these people. I mean, this makes Benedict Arnold look like a swell guy. Like, I'm just saying, it's pretty disgusting.
So.
Anyway.
The end of this article is that there was another email. Within this email, you guys can see that there's some numbers on here. This was basically a long list of bullet points that Hunter wanted to go over with his business partner, saying like these are things that we need to do. It's like a task list. And one of them was that quote, it was bullet point number 22. Hunter told Archer to, quote, buy a cell phone from 7-Eleven or CVS tomorrow, and I'll do the same, implying that they knew that what they were doing required a burner phone. That's the only way to interpret that. There is no other interpretation for somebody who's getting paid $50,000 a month, and you need to go to CVS to buy a burner phone. I wonder what's on those burner phones and where they're at. That'd be interesting. All right,
Yeah.
so moving on, just as slow as we ever do. That is a hell of a show. I don't know how. We need to do more content just because there's so much stuff to go over. It's just hard to get it all organized. It's the problem. So we are going to next watch Tucker Carlson's opening from last night, and the reason why we're going to watch this is because one, Tucker had some exclusive emails that were different from the ones that we've already covered. And the analysis that Tucker gives it is just too perfect for me to even possibly think I could replicate. So I am going to just give the floor to Tucker and let him do it for me. Sound good? All righty.
Awful lot of noise in the news right now, as you would expect. There's an election coming 3 weeks away. Everyone wants to get a blow in before it's too late. But not everything you hear is untrue, and not every story is complex. At the heart of the growing Biden-Ukraine scandal, for example, is American foreign policy in order to enrich his own family. In 2015, Joe Biden was the sitting vice president of the United States. Included in his portfolio were U.S. relations with the nation of Ukraine. So at that moment, Vice President Joe Biden had more influence over the Ukrainian government and the Ukrainian economy than any other person on the globe outside of Eastern Europe. Biden's younger son, Hunter, knew that. He hoped to get rich from his father's influence. Emails published yesterday by the New York Post, documents apparently taken directly from Hunter Biden's own laptop, tell some of that story. Tonight, we'd like to bring you some more detail. We have another batch of emails, some exclusive to the show. We believe they also came from Hunter Biden's laptop. We can't prove that they did. We haven't examined that computer. But every detail that we could check, including Hunter Biden's personal email address at the time, suggests they are authentic. As we told you last night, if these emails are fake, this is the most complex and sophisticated hoax in history. It almost seems beyond human capacity. The Biden campaign clearly believes these emails are real. They have not said otherwise. We sent the body of them to Hunter Biden's attorney and never heard back. So with that in mind, here's what we have learned. On November 2nd, 2015 at 4:30 in the afternoon, a Burisma executive called Vadim Pozharsky emailed Hunter Biden and his business partner, Devin Archer. The purpose of the email, Pozharsky explains, is to, quote, be on the same page about our final goals, including but not limited to a concrete course of action. So what did Burisma want exactly? Well, good PR, for starters. The executive wanted, quote, high-ranking U.S. officials to express their, quote, positive opinion of Burisma. And then he wanted the administration to act on Burisma's behalf. Quote, the scope of work should also include organization of a visit of a number of widely recognized and influential current and or former U.S. policymakers to Ukraine in November, aiming to conduct meetings with and bring positive signals and message of support to Burisma. The goal, the executive explained, was to, quote, close down any cases/pursuits against the head of Burisma in Ukraine.
That was a key phrase there. So the goal was to close down any investigations into Burisma. This is emails to Hunter Biden. They said that their explicit goal to Hunter Biden, they're asking for him that their goal is to get positive messages and support from U.S. government officials. Obviously, they're using Hunter Biden as a contact to do that, and Hunter Biden is using his father to do that. And then that's on its own. That might be a little bit benign. I don't know. That's just called lobbying, I guess. But the big ask is what Tucker just said is we are interested in getting all of these investigations into Burisma shut down. That's a specific thing. That's not just lobbying for goodwill. That is a specific act that is being requested. And again, this goes back to that email that we were really reading on the last article about negotiating prices for influence. This is another bit of that influence. Again, it's a separate story, a separate event that's happening. We're seeing this all throughout this email dump is just time after time a request for action. And what Tucker's about to say is going to feed into what the video that we watched at the beginning is Tucker's about to tell you that right after they requested that Hunter tell his dad to stop these investigations, to get these investigations to stop, it is within a few weeks after that we Joe Biden will tell the president of the Ukraine that he's going to withhold $1 billion unless they fire this prosecutor. And then he'll go on to brag about that a few years later to the Council of Foreign Relations. What are you cheesing about over there?
Me?
Yeah, are you laughing or are you just breathing on your mic?
Oh, no, I had to kiss a Larry and goodnight.
Oh, that's
Sorry.
adorable.
I talked
Gay.
to man. A little gay.
All right.
Closed down any cases / pursuits against the head of Burisma in Ukraine. So that couldn't be clearer what they wanted. Burisma wanted Hunter Biden's father to get their company out of legal trouble with the Ukrainian government. And that's exactly what happened. 1 month later to the day, on December 2nd, 2015, Hunter Biden received a notice from a Washington PR firm called Blue Star Strategies. Blue Star Strategies apparently had been hired to lobby the administration on Ukraine. This show has exclusively obtained that email. Hello all, it began. This morning, the White House hosted a conference call regarding the vice president's upcoming trip to Ukraine. Attached is a memo from the Blue Star Strategies team with the minutes of the call, which outlined the trip's agenda and addressed several questions regarding U.S. policy toward Ukraine, end quote. So here you have a PR firm involved in an official White House foreign policy call. How could that happen? Good question, but it worked. Days later, Joe Biden flew to Ukraine and did exactly what his son wanted. The vice president gave a speech slamming the very Ukrainian law enforcement official who was tormenting Burisma, the exact guy. If the Ukrainian government doesn't fire its top prosecutor, a man called Viktor Shokin, Biden explained, the administration withhold $1 billion in American aid. Now, Ukraine is a poor country, so they had no choice but to obey. Biden's bullying worked. He bragged about it later.
I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired.
Now, Joe Biden gave that speech before the Council on Foreign Relations, so we pretend as if what he said was normal and officially authorized. This is how things are done. That's not true at all. This is bizarre. And the amazing thing about the video you just saw is that no one in that audience of Harvard graduates and other assorted smart people asked the glaringly obvious question. Why was the vice president of the United States threatening a tiny country like Ukraine to fire its top prosecutor? That doesn't seem like a vice president's role. Well, now we know why. Viktor Shokin has signed an affidavit affirming that he was, in fact, investigating Burisma at the moment Joe Biden had him removed. Shokin said that before he was fired, administration officials pressured him into dropping the case against Burisma. He would not do that, so Joe Biden canned him. That's how things really work in Washington. Your son's got a lucrative consulting deal with a Ukrainian energy company. You tailor American foreign policy to help make him rich. Our foreign policy. Even at the State Department, possibly the most cynical agency in government, this seemed shockingly brazen. During the impeachment proceedings last fall, a State Department official called George Kent said it was widely known in Washington that the Bidens were up to something sleazy in Ukraine. Quote, I was on a call with somebody on the vice president's staff, and I raised my concerns that I had heard that Hunter Biden was on the board of Burisma. This, George Kent noted, could create a perception of a conflict of interest. So how did the vice president's office respond to this concern? Well, according to George Kent, quote, the message that I recall hearing back was that the vice president's son, Beau, was dying of cancer, and there was no further bandwidth to deal with family-related issues at the time. Family-related issues. This was America's foreign policy being tailored to Joe Biden's son.
So, as we saw, just keep rebuilding this narrative, trying to. It might sound repetitious, and it's not because it's by design that we're trying to be repetitious on this. There is a lot of different instances of this negotiation for influence and action. This one is the one that's been this firing of Viktor Shokin, this firing of the prosecutor that was looking into Burisma that Hunter Biden was on the board of. That has been something that was well known prior to this email leak. I know I'd be extremely surprised if any of you guys did not hear or recognize the story from the last year or two, because this was even referenced all the way back last year when Trump got in trouble for that Ukraine call. And this that clip of Joe Biden at the CFR saying, well, son of a bitch, he got fired. That had been playing for, at least the last 2 years. This has been something that the right has grabbed onto as, hey, the Bidens are up to something. Even the New York Times ran a story, I think in 2017 or 18. That was also, and it was an expose that the Bidens have a long history of corruption and weird things going on. Of course, that all got scrubbed as soon as Trump's Ukraine call went through. But this has been well known in the industry of on the right, on the left, in the media, in D.C. It's been well known that Biden has some, a lot of interestingly placed family members that seem to have great windfalls in the regions that Biden is responsible for overseeing. So the reason why I'm being repetitious is because that was enough circumstantial evidence to pin it on Biden before now. But now that we have the emails, we have an email from Burisma to Hunter Biden saying, hey, we really want to get these prosecutors off our back. And then 1 month later, Joe Biden flies to Ukraine and gets that guy fired using 1 billion taxpayer dollars as leverage to do it, to protect his son, and then his son's getting presumably paid by Burisma to do it. This completes the link. It is no longer circumstantial. I mean, again, it was circumstantial before only technically. There was so much circumstance around it before these articles dropped that it was pretty well known that this is what happened. But this was a key discussion during the impeachment hearings. I unfortunately had the mispleasure of watching almost every second of the impeachment hearings. And I'm still around today, so go me. But a big topic during that was whether or not Hunter Biden was actually acting corruptly on behalf of Joe Biden in the Ukraine. And they kept saying over and over and over again that even though there's that tape of Joe Biden out there, it's all circumstantial. It's all circumstantial. Well, we've now completed the loop. We now have specifically verified a person from Burisma asking Hunter Biden to do a thing, and 1 month later his father does that exact thing as the vice president. This is again, the reason why I want to harp on this one is because this is the particular incident that the right has latched on to as, hey, this is a smoking gun. We now no longer just have the smoking gun. We got the casing and the bullet too, which was this email. And that implies that the rest of these stories where there's circumstances that Biden was acting corruptly on behalf of his family to enrich himself and his family members, it would point towards those being real as well. And I think that these emails go a long way to backing those up. And, we could go through those other stories as well, but they're not nearly as well known as this one, which is why I wanted to keep focusing on it. That this is now no longer a circumstantial story. It is absolute verified fact now that Burisma hired Hunter Biden, had him on his board, was paying him $50,000 a month, asked him, hey, we would really like to get these, we have the email, we would really like to get these prosecutors off our back. And then 1 month later, Biden goes and gets those prosecutors off their back. This is now a verified fact that happened. And there was money exchanged for the vice president to do a thing using American taxpayer dollars to leverage and enrich himself and his family.
So why do you think the FBI is holding back on it?
Because the FBI is a bunch of corrupt scum.
Well, what's in it for them? It makes you think about it. Like, what's in it for the FBI, for these individual people?
Well, I think Dara and I have been talking a lot about this because we covered it. I think it was 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. But there was a report that came out that the CIA, I think Brennan had I think it was Clapper, CIA. He had been made aware in, I think, 2015 that the Hillary Clinton campaign, in order to divert attention from her email scandal, they were planning on fabricating a Russian smear against Trump, which is It's a thing that happens in politics, probably more so on the left than on the right, but it's a thing that happens. So the CIA was made aware that the Hillary Clinton campaign was going to be seeding this fabricated evidence out into the public square, and the CIA was made aware of it so that they wouldn't mistake it for reality. This James Clapper, this is all verified documentation. James Clapper briefed President Obama specifically, not the office, specifically President Obama, that this was happening. And then we have a little while later, the Steele dossier comes out, and then am I to believe that Jim Comey and Obama never discussed that? Hey, I wonder if this Steele dossier is maybe that's that thing that Clapper was talking about. Maybe that's that fabricated evidence that Hillary came out with. No, they completely ignored that, and I find it hard to believe that Comey did not know that. I think Comey did know that, and so what I'm talking about this for the FBI is Dyer and I certainly think that the FBI is scum at this point. I do not think that there is I do not think that there's a way to be an FBI agent and be one of the good ones anymore. I think that the institution has been so thoroughly corrupted. Before that revelation about Clapper and the CIA knowing about the plan to fabricate evidence, it was plausible that Jim Comey was extremely naive and also self-righteous, which is well known that Jim Comey is extremely self-righteous. Being self-righteous can make you extremely arrogant, which explains a lot of Comey's activity. But you can be self-righteous and believe in your own self-righteousness. You can believe your own bullshit and think that you're acting in a good way. And it was plausible that Comey, just extremely arrogant and self-righteous, thought that he was acting in a good way. And he just utterly failed at it. I think it's very clear after this revelation that Clapper briefed Obama that there was a plan to create fabricated documentation. I think it's extremely likely that Jim Comey knew that, and Jim Comey actively knew that he was doing the wrong thing, and that everybody on his team actively knew that they were doing the wrong thing, and all the hundreds of agents. So the reason why I say hundreds of agents, I'm not being hyperbolic. No, there's documentation that the Crossfire Hurricane utilized several hundred over the different iterations. That utilized several hundred lower-level FBI agents, and all of them went along with it. And I think that they all actively knew that what they were doing was wrong and that it was illegal. And you now are in the position of having the FBI where the entire top floors are all actively knowing that they're doing illegal things that are subverting American democracy, and you have all of their foot soldiers also going along with it. And so what does the FBI get out of it? I think that the FBI gets out of it the hope that if Biden can get in before Trump gets another term, that they can get Trump and the AG off their backs, because if Trump gets another 4 years, I think he's going to let Barr loose on the FBI. I think he is. I'm sure I will be just gleefully disappointed when Trump wins and none of this happens, but I think it's highly likely. I just don't see how it doesn't, especially with what the FBI did to Trump. I think that the next 4 years of Trump will be some thorough cleaning house at the FBI. And if you were, let's say you're a mid-level agent and you were either knowingly doing something wrong or you saw something happening wrong and you're like, well, that's above my pay grade. I'm just going to follow the orders. I think that everybody at the FBI at this point is culpable in it. And so what does the FBI get out of it is, man, if they start investigating this, they're going to find out that, I knew and I didn't say anything. And that's going to, even if I wasn't actively doing something bad, they're going to come and get me too. And so you have so many people at the FBI implicated in this that they really need to get one of these establishment guys back into office to protect them and to stop the investigation into what they did wrong. That's what the FBI gets out of sitting on this.
If he wins and with no re-election in sight, I mean, I really hope it's like Spanish Inquisition. Because this is so dirty and so bad. I mean, you would think that we would have somebody leak it. you need just one person to have a moral conscience
We had
to leak
fake
it.
leaks. I mean, we had people leaking fake stuff about Trump, and we
Right.
can't even get one genuine. There's so much genuine information to leak about Biden and Hillary and about the Trump investigation. There's so much genuine information that can be leaked, and the only leaks that we get are just fake information that was leaked. It's like-
I think it's because they're that afraid of the media, because it's all lock, stock, and barrel in the like in the realm of the Democrats.
it takes.
I don't even know if you can call them Democrats at this point. I mean, what about this is democratic?
Well, though the Democrat Party was only always named ironically, anyways.
Right.
I believe the initial name of the party was like meant as a joke. Even I'm probably misremembering the history, and I don't have enough information on it to talk about it further. But I believe looking back on it, like the name of the Democrat Party was like chosen ironically. And certainly whatever the history of the choosing of the name was, they've certainly acted in that way where the name has obviously been ironically chosen. And just the nature of we live in a republic, the party of republicans that wishes to preserve the republic, and the warning that the founding fathers gave against democracies, and we see that the party that is the democracies, the Democrats that want the democracy to come back, I think that we can see from all their policies that they've been able to implement and all the policies that they wish to implement. I think that we very well see the warning that the founding fathers gave about democracy, which I think you've quoted that one to me before. Do you want to cite what that quote was? Do you remember what it was? The wolves and
no,
the sheep. It was. Sorry, I put you on the spot there. No, it was.
No, it's okay.
The paraphrase of it was that democracy is two wolves and a lamb deciding what's for dinner, and a republic is a well-armed lamb contesting the vote.
Yeah, exactly.
So that is clearly what has been going on, and we can see even that quote is so many layers, such a simple set of words, but so many layers to it, because we can see the Democrats even trying to disarm us so that they can continue to decide what's for dinner. And I'm sure Dyer is highly offended at the use of wolves in a negative context there, but
Racist.
he
Speciesist.
yes. Alrighty, so as we said before, the other part of the story is a meta story, a meta narrative, where the story certainly important and is continuing to develop, and we can only ever get through a tiny fraction of it. So still encourage you to go look for it yourself. But the meta story on this was the suppression of this story, which Krieg has prepared some stuff about. Tell us about what happened. What happened when the New York Post released this?
Yeah, so basically, while we're going through this, I would like you to keep two things in mind. Keep first in mind the original New York Post story that came out on October 14th about the initial email leaks, right? And then I want you to keep also in the back of your mind the story so not too long ago about the New York Times leaking Donald Trump's tax records. So just keep that in mind while we go through the Twitter safety's tweets about the New York Post article. So this is from @TwitterSafety on October 14th, 2020, 7:44 p.m. Eastern Time. So this was right after, not too long after the New York Post published the article about Hunter Biden. Okay, we want to provide much needed clarity around the actions we've taken with respect to two New York Post articles that were first tweeted this morning. The images contained in the article include personal and private information like email addresses and phone numbers, which violate our rules, private information policy. As noted this morning, we also currently view the materials included in the articles as violations of our hack materials policy. Commentary on or discussion about hack materials, such as articles that cover them but do not include link materials themselves, aren't a violation of this policy. Our policy only covers links to the images of hacked materials themselves. The policy, as established in 2018, prohibits the use of service to distribute content obtained without authorization. We don't want to incentivize hacking by allowing Twitter to be used as a distribution for possibly illegally obtained materials. We know we have more work to do to provide clarity in our product when we enforce our rules in this manner. We should provide additional clarity and context when preventing the tweeting or DMing of URLs that violate our policies. We recognize that Twitter is just one of many places where people can find information online, and the Twitter rules are intended to protect the conversation on our service and add context to people's experience where we can. Following that, Jack Dorsey retweeted a section of Twitter safety, and he said on October 14th, 2020 at 7:55 p.m. Eastern Time, our communication around our actions on the New York Post articles was not great. No shit, Jack. And blocking URL sharing via tweet or DM with zero context as to why are blocking unacceptable.
That's
and
important
why the hell did
to
you do it?
DM. They were blocking you sharing this link via DM. So what we're saying with this like unprecedented level of censorship is if you happen, a lot of people get their news through social media. Yes, the newspapers are creating the news, but your method of finding it is usually not going to their website or getting a physical paper copy. That's a very small percentage of the population. Most people are getting you are drawn attention to this news by it trending on social media or a friend sending it to you. Say, hey, look at this. That's 99% of your news viewership is driven by, I might be a little bit hyperbolic on 99. I don't know what the exact value is, but most of it is driven by people finding it on social media or having a friend send it to them. It is not driven by people going out and saying, oh, I wonder what's on the New York Post today. Most people are just not that interested in the news. Some people are, but most people are not. So because of this unprecedented level of censorship, unless you went to the New York Post, you weren't able to see this on social media because it was blocked. If you did happen to go to the New York Post and find it, you could not send it to your friend in a DM. They blocked it. There was no way for you to tell your friend. You had to figure out some alternate route. Maybe you had to actually call them. Maybe you had to text it to them. Maybe you had to email it to them. But you could not do it via Twitter. And a lot of people communicate almost exclusively through Twitter. In fact, Krieg and I we got Skype and Discord too. But we do a lot of DMing and Twitter, and we wouldn't be able to talk about this. You wonder about. I don't think it's a secret. Dyer and I, you don't know where we live, but we don't live anywhere near each other. It's a very remote show for us all. But imagine if this level of censorship was extended not just from Twitter but into Skype as well. Dyer and I would be unable to. We would almost like lose communication because you got Google too. You can imagine this spreading out into Google as well and being unable to send your Gmails with these links in them. All of a sudden, you in the internet era, it's very easy to have friends and interactions with people that are geographically distant. And, that's possible because we have this great communication web called a internet that allows us to communicate. But if all of a sudden you get broad consensus from the powers that be that they are no longer going to be transmitting certain information across that network, all of a sudden you're cut off from these people. And there's still certain channels, modes of communication. There's other alternatives to talk to these people, but it makes it very, very difficult. There might be people that you only know on Facebook. You might not know what their phone number is. And if you can't send them something on Facebook, they'll never see it from you. You are now no longer able to tell people stuff on certain platforms. Your ability to do that has been massively reduced. And some people might make the argument, oh well, it was kind of like that before the internet, so it's not really that much of a loss. Well, humanity has evolved. We've achieved the next stage of evolution, and that is the internet technology, and they are trying to roll back the clock on that. It is unprecedented, this level of censorship that happened with this story. As you went through there, Krieg, justification that Twitter safety gave was pretty thin at best. The articles did not include, so one of the things that articles include addresses and phone numbers. Those were all publicly available prior to the email release. Hacked materials just were not hacked. They were given by an owner, so far as we know. It was reported by the New York Post that now maybe this was legally challenged, but the New York Post reported that the owner of the computer repair shop had legally gained ownership of a abandoned laptop, which happens. That's a common thing. If you have a car at a mechanic or a computer at a repair shop or whatever, if you leave it there for long enough, it is considered abandoned. Now, there's different laws in different states regarding abandonment policies, but it's a common thing. If you abandon something in the custody of someone else, they eventually get ownership transferred to them. The New York Post reported that the ownership had transferred to this guy. This guy gave the emails to the New York Post. There's no hacking involved here. It was lawfully giving property to another person, which is you're allowed to do. You got Jack saying, "Oh, maybe it was a mistake to move stuff and block DMs." Well, yeah, Jack, you fucking think it was a mistake to block DMs, but like Jack didn't do anything about it. He just he's like, oh, maybe it was a mistake. It's kind of like the Republicans. The Republicans, they get all riled up at the hearing, saying like, I can't believe we did this, and then when it comes time to vote, they're like, yeah, I don't really got an opinion anymore. When it came time for Jack to take on his leadership role that he supposedly has at Twitter, he wasn't interested in doing it. He was certainly willing to bitch about it, but he didn't actually do anything about it.
And here's the thing about that, and I don't know if you want to go through the actual policies themselves. We can if you like, but the thing is that they clearly violated their own terms of service. They violated their own policy because, like you just explained, there was nothing. They hadn't even fully read the post. And to try to say that it was misinformation is nonsense because it hasn't been verified yet before it was put out. Not to mention, you're trying to say, oh, it was obtained from hacked materials. Well, how do you know that? How do you know that? How do you know it wasn't legally obtained?
So the fascinating... Go ahead.
So to jump down a throat, and immediately, as soon as people were sharing this, as soon as the New York Post was sharing this, they were already censoring it. This was a political con job. And compared to the way they treated the New York Times putting out the supposed illegal obtainment of Trump's tax returns, which was put out without the authorization of the owner. I mean, where is the fairness? This is bias. This is pure blatant bias, and Twitter is fucked because they on Tuesday next week, they're apparently the Senate Judiciary Committee is going to subpoena Jack Dorsey to appear before court. Ted Cruz promised it Friday next week. I don't know what you're going to do when you're going to have to
send the fucking FBI into their office. To the extent the FBI, maybe the U.S. Marshals. Maybe I should start calling on the U.S. Marshals because that is Dyer and I's theory is that the U.S. Marshals would be the ones capable of replacing the FBI because the FBI needs to be flipped. The FBI serves a valuable role when they're actually doing it, but they are too dangerous now, and we identified the U.S. Marshals as a viable replacement. So send the fucking U.S. Marshals into Twitter's offices, march them in there, do a raid. This is what happens with you're probably vaguely familiar with this with pot companies. You got a bunch of legal pot companies all over America now after certain states have legalized, and you get federal ATF officers marching in there. You do raids that come in body armor and guns pointed, and they say, stop doing what you're doing, drop that, don't burn that, stop it. March into fucking Twitter's offices and do that. Let's get some stuff. Let's get some stuff going. Again, they not only locked down and censored the New York Post. Again, they locked the New York Post out of their Twitter account. They made it so that the New York Post was no longer able to transmit the news over the the vector that is most easily accessed, which is Twitter. They made it so you couldn't share it in DMs. They ultimately would go on to later in the day, because the New York Post was not able to share the link to it, and people were not able to share the link to it, the House Republicans put a link to it on house.gov, and they put it alongside a statement saying that they intended to subpoena the people that Krieg just mentioned. And they put a link to the New York Post article as their justification for these subpoenas. And they did that partially so that people could share out the link to house.gov and then eventually navigate to the New York Post article. Twitter blocked the link to house.gov. You have a Twitter blocking the ability for the government to tell the people what it's doing. That is... Go ahead.
Sorry. Meanwhile, allowing, the Chinese government, the Russian government, the Iranian government to post, horrible information, misinformation, all sorts of nonsense, and you're going to block your home country's government because you don't like the article that they're sharing? You got to be out of your mind.
Yeah. So, what? I guess it's all cute and dandy. I'm sure we'll get some great sound bites out of these hearings next week. But some action should be justified here. And that's I don't know. The House Republicans had the Senate and the House and the presidency and now sort of the courts in the first 2 years of the Trump presidency. They did a whole bunch of not anything with that. And they could have. I mean, certainly social media censorship was a big deal back then. They
couldn't even get health care done.
Yeah, they didn't do anything. You couldn't get health care done. They didn't even put a bill forward for this thing. And Dyer is saying something about maybe it's maybe this will finally shake people awake. Well, maybe it's too late. I mean, there's at a certain point, if Twitter has now set the precedent that they are going to be able to, on the place where most people get their news, either Twitter or Facebook, because Facebook is doing the same sort of stuff. It's hard to cover all of them, but Facebook's doing nearly the exact same thing that Twitter's doing, and they're doing it in lockstep unison. YouTube's hopped on board as well. It's there's some monopolistic coordination there, but the Republicans might have waited so long that they might have even lost control of the government to a certain extent. If at the point where you have the modes of communication that the government typically uses are now controlled by these big tech companies, and these big tech companies can, and they've just shown that they can. I think that we knew that they could. We didn't think that they would. We now know that they can and that they are willing to do it, that they can just block whatever they decide from the government. They can just block a government trying to give the people information. Twitter can just decide that they want to block that. This does not bode well for the election. Twitter has famously said that if on election night Trump declares victory before the counts are in, that they will not allow him to post that, though they conspicuously did not say anything about if Biden declares victory, which I think we all know why. But we now see that even just something that might be bad for Biden's campaign, they are willing to totally break the glass, lock out the New York Post, lock out the whitehouse.gov, lock out link sharing on your DMs, lock out link sharing on all your regular tweeting out, doing this on Facebook as well. What do you think they're going to do if any media outlet dares to report on election totals that might be favorable to Trump? Right now, we've got the precedent that they will censor them, that they will not allow them to share that. If it comes out that let's say we roll down the line here, and it's a month after the election, and the totals do come out that Trump wins, will these media outlets be allowed to post that? Some of them might not, they just won't post it. But if someone like a Fox News or a Breitbart, if they post, hey, the federal elections have been certified by all the governors, this is the electoral vote count, Trump wins, is Twitter just going to lock them out of it now? If after that, maybe it goes to the White House might make out a statement saying like, hey, you know, we're planning the inauguration this day. Trump won, like, congratulations. You have the Senate and the House saying, you know, we accept, we approve and endorse this vote, that this was a, you know, free and fair election. Are they going to be allowed to make that statement without getting censored? If any media outlets carry that statement, are they going to get censored now? This is like a whole brand new, like, this is literally a brave new world. Just this week, I said this at the beginning of the show, and I realize I'm rambling a bit here, but I said this at the beginning of the show. I want to stress how important it is that this is not the same sort of censorship that we've seen in the past. We knew that the social media was capable of this level of censorship. It's fundamentally different now that they've done it. This has never happened at this level before. This is a brand new turning point in America. This is a definitively different type of censorship, and anything's on the table. The next 8 weeks, which takes us through the election and through some of the longer estimates for how long it's going to take to count the election. The next 8 weeks, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be strange because it might be chaos, and you might just not hear about it. You might just not even hear about what's going on, which is really, really strange. That could be the state. We kind of thought that it might be chaos. It could just be silence. It could just be 8 weeks of silence. That would be even scarier, in my opinion, than the chaos. Because in the chaos, you can at least see what's going on, and you have a chance of fighting it. If they just lock everything down and censor everything, it could just be nobody knows what's going on. And if it's just dead silence, then whoever is allowed to speak, which I guess Twitter and Facebook are now the arbiters of who's allowed to speak on a national stage, they will get to set whatever narrative in history they want.
Going off on a slight tangent, because I'd like, and I know we're probably getting close to wanting to wrap up, perhaps possibly, but just wanted to like kind of get your take on this. Maybe other people will find this interesting as well. You know, we went through, and Trump made a really good point about this at the town hall. You know, they keep asking him, you know, are you going to accept peaceful transition? There's been no peaceful transition. There was no peaceful transition in 2016. It's been 4 long years of hoaxes and coups in an attempt to subvert the presidency. And I you know, the question is, you know, okay, they've already done this for 4 years. What's to stop them from continuing doing something like this for the next 4 years of his presidency? And I have a hunch, and I wanted to get your take on this because you're pretty. I think you're like well read in this kind of stuff. But you know, are they just not going to accept defeat? Because why should they? It's these sketchy mail-in ballots that the majority of their people are voting with. I mean, he could win in a landslide just because too many votes got thrown out. Because I mean, you hear stories about people wiping down their ballots with alcohol wipes.
Yeah.
You know, I just, you know, Ilarian and I just went and checked on our voter registration the other day, and we were hearing stuff from the ladies there. But you know, they could easily just challenge. They could just hold this up for the next 2 years, just challenging in court on whether or not the ballots were legitimately discarded, or whether they were counted properly, or they were thrown away, or the, you know, oh my God, the myriad of different issues they could bring up. And you know, now you can almost already see them starting it, because now they're saying that the GOP is putting out illegal poll boxes in California to collect votes.
Yeah, they're also in other states. They're in other states. They're doing the reverse of that, saying that the GOP is trying to get rid of polling boxes.
Yeah, and it's funny because the Democrats do the same thing, but you can already kind of see the narrative being crafted, that because they're desperate to get rid of him, you know, and they want to hold up the investigation into their own corruption. I don't know. I think we might not know who the president is.
I honestly
Who
think so. So one of the things that is, I'll get back to your question here. So one of the things that's different about America's election process as opposed to other countries is kind of tied to the former idea that we had a free media under our First Amendment. The other countries will have an election board, like a board that manages the federal elections for or whatever the level is for their countries. It is some kind of designated board that will handle certifying the election. America is entirely different. So the way that our totals are reported at the national level are through the media. They are aggregated by the media. Now, each individual state and county will report their voter totals, and ultimately it is the state government that will certify and approve the electoral votes. But the aggregate totals are reported by and aggregated by the media. We do not have an election board in America, not a federal one. Part of that is due to some of the dealing with having the states enter the union is that the states got to certify their own elections, which I think certainly makes sense from a states' rights perspective, and I support that. But the national vote totals, the popular vote totals, are only aggregated by the media, the news agencies. There is no certified national board that certifies the national popular vote total. It is only the media that is collecting those aggregates. What that means is that the media is in control of that. And so because of we know which side the media is on right now. We know that the voting is going to be very suspect in counts because of the unprecedented number of mail-in votes, which are not absentee votes. We are already seeing lots and lots of stories of a large number of incorrect absentee ballots being sent out, either too many or the wrong ones or ones that are not written correctly, all kinds of stuff. We're also seeing a lot of people screw up mailing in their votes and all sorts of stuff like that. So being that we don't have a national board to certify the national popular vote, we are reliant on the media. In conjunction with this story, if you have certain media outlets that have aggregated a vote total that is Trump is up, we run the very real high probability event, and Twitter's even said that they'll do it, that media agency will not be able to report on that. They will not be able to report on that through social media. Now, certainly there'll be a lot of people watching the news, but again, the election results will not be in on election night. The election results will be in at soonest is the estimated they'll be 2 or 3 days later. Long shots is that it'll be a whole month later. So people will be watching the news election night, but they aren't going to be watching the news every single night. So as voter rolls come in, the place that you're most likely to find out who won first will be from social media. That's where the route of information is going to flow. Because Twitter has already vowed to not allow information that Trump won to be circulated, and they've now shown that they will even lock a mainstream media Twitter account to do that, that flow of information is going to be very, very slow. It's going to be very drip drop information. It's not going to percolate very fast. Social media helps information spread very quickly. Twitter is going to be able to put the brakes on that. It won't be able to spread very quickly. So what you're going to have is very inconsistent reports as to who won because the media is aggregating it, and we have many members of the media. It's not just one body, and they're all going to aggregate them slightly differently. So that'll be in conflict if the vote's close. One thing that solves this is a overwhelming popular vote. Maybe that'll happen. But like a popular vote where you're winning by like 10%, that would be 55 to 45%. That would be someone that would be irrefutable. What will happen after that? So you're going to have a month of unsuredness. you're going to start getting these. I don't think that the court cases are going to go anywhere. So my idea with the court cases, the challenging of the votes in every state, is that will take so long, and there will be so many challenges. They will obviously never possibly get through Election Day. They'll never be decided on through Election Day. And so you're going to have a lot of states that will just certify what they want their electoral votes to be, and they aren't even going to be sure what their popular votes are either. So even with it in the state level is going to be certifying votes that are mainly aggregated by mainstream media sources. Now a lot of states will have processes where the counties directly report their voter totals to the state level, but a lot of states are run by, a lot of swing states are run by Republican legislatures. And it's the legislatures that will be certifying the votes. So what you're probably going to have is you're going to have counties reporting to their state legislature in swing states. You're going to have those swing state Republican legislatures approving they're going to be approving a Republican, a for Trump electoral votes. You're going to have the mainstream media saying, nope, the state reported it wrong, and we've got the real aggregate. And the media will then be reporting something that mismatches with what the state legislature certified. The Electoral College will convene. They will select Trump, and the mainstream media will say, nope, all the states sent the wrong people. We have the real aggregates. And since we don't have a federal election board to be the official arbiter, we will have a conflict between the various states and the media. At that point, because there is no official body that tells the federal government that verifies that the correct electors went to the right place, and to the best of my knowledge, the Electoral College it's respected. It's not. I don't know if there's a specific process other than the Constitution. There's not like a body that like mandates that there has to be a transition. Like certainly like within the Constitution, it's outlined. But as for who enforces that, I do not believe is specifically outlined. And at that point, you get what's been discussed as the counting heads phase. And so you will have a mainstream media, which is reporting one set of votes that the Electoral College should have been a certain way. You will have the states certifying the Electoral College in a way that conflicts with that. And at that point, the federal government will have to decide. Various departments in the federal government will have to decide who they want to support. The military will have to decide which will be the big one. Capitol Police will have to decide. The Secret Service would have to decide. That is what we will be at is a problem is when you'll have because what the media is going to say is the Electoral College is a fraud. It's not correct. So that's what I see happening is you're going to have the litigiousness against the challenging the vote totals in individual states and counties and court is going to be, that's just theater. That's never going to go anywhere before the actual inauguration day. And then you'll have the media reporting different voter totals than what the states are certifying. The media will be reporting that the Electoral College should have looked like this. The states will certify it in a different way. And then, as I said, you will have to have various agencies deciding who they want to select because there is no overarching election board that will tell them what to do. Again, the Constitution outlines it, but the Constitution doesn't outline who gets to decide who won. So there's no enforcement mechanism other than just respecting the process, and usually everyone agrees on who won. But if you're in a situation where no one agrees on who won, then you just have to decide, and you'll have a lot of agencies that will have to decide. I think that is where we're headed unless Trump wins in an absolute ridiculous popular vote landslide.
Which I think you and I both know is shy close of a fucking miracle.
Yeah. I don't see how we get through this without either way without some kind of federal agency deciding it. Whoever is in the Oval Office on was it January 29th? Or was it 23rd? That will be, I believe that will be mainly determined by federal bureaucracies deciding one way or the other. That is what my belief is.
It's going to be a close election, and I think having such a close election in tandem with this risky unsolicited ballot nonsense and just so many mail-in ballots in general is just a recipe for disaster.
I certainly think that after this, maybe there's certain aspects, there's certain futures where the Republic does not quite survive this. But yeah, and the assumption that the Republic survives this, by fucking God, the next 4 years better be entirely focused around figuring out some kind of solution. As much as I hate another bureaucracy, the media cannot be the sole body responsible for deciding the election. We need some kind of federal election oversight. And I do not want the federal government being able to control how the states run their elections, but I don't know. We got to figure something out. This is not good. This is not liberty in voting. This is allowing us to be vulnerable to tyranny from the mainstream media and the tech companies. The idea that the states get to control and certify their own elections is, again, under states' rights, which is a idea vested in liberty. But as it currently stands, it's not liberty. It just makes us very open to tyranny. So that needs to be solved. I don't know what the solution is to that necessarily, and I'm not a big fan of allowing the federal government control over every single state's election regulations, because we're kind of seeing what the Democrats want to do with that, and I don't want them to have a lever to do that with. But we can't just let ourselves be open to tyranny like this. So there has to be some kind of other solution. I don't know what that is, but it's got to be something. It's got to be something.
I mean, it will at least be the tyranny of chaos. You know what I mean? I mean, the chaos that is going to come about as a result of this is going to be insane. Because, I even if it comes out, that Trump lost, I wouldn't blame him for questioning the results. I don't think anybody would blame him for questioning the results. This has been so dirty that, but they won't see it that way. You know what I mean? They will see it that he's trying to steal the election. Yeah,
it's crazy because you got Trump, who they said it wasn't even true. They said that he was seeking information from Russia to smear Hillary Clinton with, and that was enough to warrant investigations. When the truth, and that didn't even happen. But the truth was that Hillary actually did that and then used that against Trump to sponsor an investigation. So when the Republicans try to investigate Democrat malfeasance, well, that's foreign interference, and the Republicans are corrupt. When the Democrats use foreign governments to investigate, well, that just means the Republicans are corrupt. It's sometimes they win, sometimes we lose. That's the mentality. Sometimes the Democrats win, yep. Sometimes the Republicans lose. But that is the only way that they see it. That is, everything must be viewed through that lens. Another kind of point on the censorship, just to reiterate this, Joe Biden had a town hall last night for an hour and a half, and George Stephanopoulos did not ask him a single question about this. I mean, this is this is like, in a lot of ways, this is the biggest story that never happened. Not that it didn't happen, but it just, if a giant media story breaks and there's no algorithm around to trend it, did it really happen? If Twitter is going to block this and not allow it to get anywhere, if Facebook's going to block this and not allow it to get anywhere, it's the biggest story that no one ever heard. And the mainstream media is just again, the more dangerous thing, I think, is going to be the silence. It'll be the not saying anything, because that means that there's voices out there that are being silenced. And I think that's what I think that'll be the more dangerous thing after the election. It's not the chaos. It'll be the silence.
Yeah. Well, I think I think Cascadia is a good idea, and I think they should all go. It's kind of where I'm fucking at. I think you should just do your little Cascadia bullshit and don't let the door hit you on the way out. Like,
Just make sure you do
I
your
don't know where we.
make sure you do your grocery shopping before the election day. Make sure you get your mac and cheese and your 556 and your bread and milk and 233s and
We got 100 rounds of buckshot on the way. So
there you go. I got a piece of a pallet of 9 that
nice.
should have been in but has not come in yet, and it was supposed to have been in like a month ago, and I had a factory direct contact, and I was getting it at cost, $2K, and it's supposed to be in by now, but it has not come in yet, and I'm a little concerned on that.
Might wanna give him a call. Like, hey,
Hey,
election's coming up. I need my.
Oh, he knows what we all need it for. But come on,
just in case I need to defend my house and my life.
Fuck you, no. Yeah, I would say if you guys have friends, PSA, you guys have friends that you primarily talk to on the internet, I would make sure that you have alternate ways of communicating. I would say, obviously Twitter. That is, you are likely to find yourself just booted off of that at some point. Facebook, Discord, even your gaming apps like like PlayStation, Xbox Live, and that sort of stuff. You're likely to find your accounts shut down.
Get on Parler.
Even Gmails. As of right now, because they were properly regulated, the only thing that might be safe is really cellular or just phone lines. Talking on the phone and sending text messages, because that has been properly regulated as common carrier, and I think that makes sense. It's one of the things with the internet too is that people talk about, well, we shouldn't be able to regulate the internet. It's kind of the ANCAP argument, and that sneaks into the libertarian and the conservative side as well. One of the reasons why we should is because the internet is the people like to say like the government doesn't actually make anything. That's actually not true. The government did actually make the internet. The original ARPANET was created and funded as a DARPA project. The internet grew off of the core ARPANET as publicly funded universities linked into it. The birth of the internet was public tax dollars paid for it. It is similar to one of the reasons why there's regulations around radio traffic is because everyone owns the air. Like you cannot. Yes, it is. It is something that is in the country. It's America's airspace, but it is in theory. It is a resource that is such commons that no one person can own it without having it been decided by elected representatives. The elected representatives have decided that it was in the public good to sell off parcels of wavelengths to various entities so that they can have that radio frequency as their range, similar to how we have parceled off certain aspects of public land that belong to everybody, and we've parceled them off and sold them off if it's in the public good to make an oil pipeline or something. Maybe that's debatable, but that's how we decide it, is it's publicly decided because it's publicly owned land. We all own it, same as the air. We all own it. The internet is a new medium. It's not land, it's not air, but it was created, the entire entity of it. It's a brand new medium that was created with public money. We all own what the internet originally was. Now, certainly a lot of that infrastructure has been moved over to private companies, but that's the same thing with phone carriers. It's a lot of it's running on the same lines and hardware. The internet is supposed to be ours. It was supposed to be like the air, belong to everybody. And if you wanted to parcel off sections of it that were not allowed for other people to be in, you that would have to be decided on by Congress. So if as it stood, the internet needs to be regulated in the same way that phone carriers are. It is in the public interest that the internet stay as open as possible, that these tech companies not be allowed to do what they're doing. I know there's been a lot of debate that the government regulating anything is just never going to lead to anywhere good. But the internet's essentially Ancapistan right now, and as is my problem with ANCAP ideology in general, is that it tends to lead towards warlords that will overwhelm the commons. We have the tech companies that have been the warlords, and they've overwhelmed the commons. There needs to be regulation on that. It cannot be allowed to happen. I'm not a big fan of regulation, but as I've explained on this show quite a few times, being the statist cuck that I am, enjoying the constitutional republic that we live in, one of the reasons why I enjoy living in the constitutional republic is because I believe that the greatest route towards liberty is a small but existent federal government that exists to protect the commons. I believe that liberty is best protected when the commons is protected by a centralized body. And the internet being one of the greatest commons of all, I think that it would be best protected by some regulation from the centralized government. That is just
I tentatively agree.
I know. It's a dangerous knife's edge to wield there. But I
mean, I think about it. I think about it like this, and Beanie Boy Tim Pool brought this up the other night. It's like, if I were to call you on my phone and I were to start talking about the Hunter Biden scandal, I don't suddenly lose connection and get told via audio that I've been leaking, salty information about Hunter Biden's crack pipe or whatever, and that I'm now going to be locked until I retract that information or some shit. That doesn't happen. Like, I'm definitely, dude, I hate it. Like because I struggle with this as a hardcore libertarian. I struggle with this, but I'm getting to the point where I feel like we really need to regulate these social media companies like public utilities, because that's what they've become.
Yeah.
They've become public utilities. And unless you're sharing literally child pornography or other illicit material, then what is the big fucking deal? And how can you sit there and claim to be a platform when you are regulating whether or not the president can declare victory? That is absurd, and it's insane, and your bias is so obvious that I don't know how anybody can get through this. But there is such a distant reality connection between so many people in this country. There are two different versions of the same reality that we are viewing. There's probably an infinite number of versions, to be honest, with all of the various echo chambers and all the various ideological tribes. I mean, the fact that people don't see this is just more evidence of that, because it's really fucking bad.
Yeah, I don't know. I just it's rough. We're in a bad state. I don't know if we can pull it back. So there's been every example throughout history of your very successful empires, empire being more of a proxy for culture rather than actual mechanical empire. I don't think that the U.S. is really an empire anymore, but we are certainly a successful culture. Every example of that throughout history, they're all gone. They all had decadence problems that led to instability, and they were never able to course correct, and then it collapsed their society. And it seems, it's an interesting curiosity to look at those collapsed civilizations through the safety of history. It's very safe to look at those from up here in the the 2020s and not back in their day. But we're currently in our own, and I'm sure that future historians 500 years from now will be able to look back on this time and be like, wow, that would have sucked. I'm glad I'm safe up here in 2500. But we're in it now, and it's if we are able to course correct and restabilize civilization in America, that will be a first.
I think it's also significant this coming from you as well, that you believe that this is where we're going, because I remember it not being too long ago that you were definitely one of the people staunchly saying no, I think we're okay, like we'll get through this, the republic is resilient, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but and I feel like there's been a change of tone, and I hear from a lot of people.
I
honestly,
bounce back and forth on it. I was unprepared for the level that Twitter and Facebook went to this week. That was you also got to kind of add on to this. It seems insignificant. It's kind of a funny story that Mazie Hirono made up a new definition for sexual preference this week, and within 5 hours, Merriam-Webster changed the definition of an English word so that it fit with the lies that a U.S. senator said.
Yep.
So you add on to that this idea that the Democrats can speak lies, and within 24 hours, the English language will be modified such that they are no longer lies, technically. And then you've got the censorship. So you have an active revisionism and then an active blocking of things that they don't want. And that is at a level that this is not stuff that I didn't think that they could do. I think that we all knew that they were capable of doing these things. But would they? Would they do it, and would they do it on something this blatant? And this is a whole new level of stuff that's going on here.
And now, I mean, it's something. Oh, go ahead.
Just so some of what you're hearing tonight is just like the cynicism, just from like how surprising this week was, in what they were able to do. We did talk. Dyer and I talked last week about kind of the logistics of what the Civil War might look like, or what the for lack of a better term, the civil dispute might look like. And I think that the route that we laid out, which was mostly kind of the TLDR, and that was mostly around just non-compliance at town levels. Your town says we are not complying with this unconstitutional law, and that would percolate up to the county level, and then eventually you have a lot of your most counties in America are conservative, they're red. The vast majority of counties are red, and so that percolates up to the county level and eventually up to the state level, and you just have general non-compliance starting at a very, very small local level. Just the your local podunk town police saying we're not going to enforce that.
We kind of saw some of that with Virginia too, right?
Yeah. So we were referencing what we saw. One of the reasons why I thought that was an accurate route that we could go is because we saw that happen in Virginia under the gun laws. We saw that happen in Florida under COVID lockdowns, and we're seeing that in Michigan now again too under Governor Whitmer's unconstitutional orders, where she is she's going way above and beyond what her emergency powers authorize her to do. And you have a lot of towns and counties banding together with saying that we are no longer following the dictates of the governor. And so it's just it doesn't require any kind of bloody conflict or guerrilla warfare. It's just at the local level saying we will not comply. And that's, so that's still there. But that's kind of separate from the communication network. So we will, to the extent that this gets resolved, we'll lose something. I don't know what it'll be, but certainly it seems like we're going to be losing the internet in the way that we've known it for most of our lives. We're going to be losing it either through censorship, where it's just locked down and you can't use it the way that we used to use it, or maybe your town is, you have people who listen to the show regularly. You probably remember the story that we went through last week. maybe your town and your county band together saying, hey, we're gonna, we're not complying with the dictates from a Biden government. And then Twitter says we're shutting off Twitter services to this area. Maybe you get Comcast on board too, and this is okay. We're shutting off internet. But I think that one way or the other, we will start losing services. We see this with conservatives a lot with Kyle Rittenhouse most recently, but not by far not the only one, where he was unable to raise funds for his legal defense because Discover canceled his bank account and would not allow.
Oh, wow.
Discover blocked if you tried to donate to Kyle Rittenhouse with your Discover credit or checking account. Discover would not process the transaction.
Holy shit!
We've seen this from other places. So this is not just censorship from the social media level. You could start seeing again mass and using the social media.
They did that
database.
to Alex Jones too.
Yeah. So you might start seeing is the social media giants. They've already got good aggregate. They know who you are. Even if you're not kicked off yet, they've got you targeted, certainly. And what you might see is, as this escalates, maybe this happens in 2 months, maybe this happens in 5 years or 20 years or whatever, you might see the social media companies using their databases as the bootstrapping for something that will look like the Chinese social credit system. And that will be, there's been a lot of talk that the private corporations are attempting to implement something akin to that. It wouldn't be federal government. Thank God it's just the corporations abusing me. If it was the federal government, man, that'd be real tyranny. Thank God it's just the private sector. Jeez, it's a free market, guys. But you could see that with the banks utilizing the social media databases that have already targeted everyone, and they could start cross-referencing those and using that to start locking out sectors of the economy. I think it'd be a little bit harder for the telecom companies to shut off internet to various places, but maybe. But I think that the war will be for resources, not necessarily like physical goods and services, because a lot of the physical goods and services are produced and grown in the counties that would be most likely to secede or to do the non-compliance. But your resources, your access to internet technologies, communications, banking, the financial sector, I think that those will be up for grabs. I think that the Civil War will play out in restricting access to those things, is what I'm imagining. And I think that I think that maybe if you asked me last week, I think that was a little crazy, but see, again, this really shook me this week. And if it didn't shake you hearing what Twitter and Facebook did, I don't think that you understood it. That's just my personal opinion.
It's not only like the Twitter and Facebook thing. The little old lady Catholic rosary bead Trump rally that I went to tonight. They talked a lot about the moderation of the debate and just the stark difference between the debate, the debates that we had so far this year and the ones we had even in 2016. Just how bias it is and how bad it is, and how, like, at least in 2016 they asked Hillary Clinton about her emails.
Just like on this particular topic, like the moderator for Trump, his town hall last night asked him about the Russiagate stuff again, and it's like the most recent story on Russiagate is that it was verified a hoax 8 different ways, and everyone knew that it was a hoax. Obama knew that it was a hoax, and it was a fabrication by Hillary Clinton's campaign. The CIA, like the most recent story that came out about Trump Russia was that the CIA knew and briefed Obama that they knew that it was a hoax coming out of the Hillary Clinton campaign. It is verified that Trump did absolutely nothing from like 8 different investigations. Trump was asked about that after all the debunking. And then Biden, all this stuff drops, 40,000 emails from Hunter. Again, that one email was really ridiculous. You're really seeing the sausage being made there. Negotiating the specific price of Biden's influence. That was something. That comes out. George Stephanopoulos did not say a single word about it. And Biden does not have to answer to anything. Trump's got to answer to Democrat fan fiction, and then Biden does not have to answer. Yes, Biden does not have to answer to a single thing that he's done. It's verified that he's done.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where we go. I don't see this getting better before it gets a lot worse. Is kind of my thought. I don't see this improving.
Yeah.
I mean the left's their culture war is falling apart, but they're desperate, and their desperation is destroying so much. Jesus Christ, Russia's trending on Twitter again.
Oh, God. That was the other thing with Twitter. So while Twitter was blocking and censoring all this stuff, Twitter Force trended yesterday a Washington Post story that said that all the stuff was fake, but the story didn't have any evidence that it was fake, and they forced it to trend. But yeah, that's why I agree with you. There's going to be some kind of it's going to be some kind of loss or reversion. That's what I was explaining earlier with all the previous empires, is they were unable to self-correct and they ultimately collapsed. If we don't outright collapse, it'll be a first. If we can not collapse at all, that'll be a first with icing on top. But I think I think realistically it'll be somewhere in between. I think that the right controls too much of the conservative people control too much of the productive economy, just from like where it's located at within the country. Like manufacturing and farming districts are in conservative areas. We control the productive side of the economy. The left controls the information and financial side of the economy. If it comes down to who's going to cordon off the most resources and who wins, certainly the conservatives win that route for sure. We will just starve out the cities if it comes down to that. If the left wants to lock broad swaths of the population out of the economy, well, they're not going to see their food deliveries. That's what's going to happen. But that doesn't involve bloody shootouts necessarily, not on the broad scale, but it certainly is a loss. I am highly concerned that there'll be a reversion. There'll be some kind of loss, certainly before it gets better. That will be the worst before it gets better. We will lose something, and I think it's going to be either technological or financial, but there will be something that used to be pretty hallmark in your life that you kind of took for granted. The financial system, I think Americans, more so than any other culture, we take the financial system for granted just because everything's valued against the dollar. That's really special. You ask any of your friends who are from abroad, having the dollar as the universal standard is pretty special. We take that for granted. If that gets taken away, I don't know how you compensate for that. And again, it might get getting taken away in the sense that your bank account gets locked out. You become unpersoned. You lose the internet, or you lose certain aspects of the internet. That's a reversion. So I don't think that we make it through this without losing something.
And there are people who live like that. I mean, hey, I hate to bring it up again, but Alex Jones. I mean, this guy, he's locked out of. He can't do bank information. He's gone through several hosts for his website. He's banned off of every social media platform imaginable, except for the alt ones. I mean, that's an example of what we might be looking at for the future.
I wonder, maybe like the post office, the government should be the other thing it should solely control. It should give up the post office and control the internet. it would have to be an amendment because we can't just have the legislation decide, okay, well, we're gonna take control of the internet, but we're also gonna do all these things that we want to do to it. I would love to see a clean amendment that strikes from the Constitution the ability for the post office to exist under a federal jurisdiction, and internet infrastructure. I think should be owned by the government. I don't. Maybe I'm just spitballing here. Maybe I don't think that, but it's an idea. It's a possible, just spitballing ideas here. A possible idea might be a clean constitutional amendment that says the government has the ability to own the internet, and because it owns the internet because, again, we the people paid for it. We the people paid for the original internet. Everything about the technology that has evolved since, we funded the creation of that. We should have. The U.S. people should have kind of those IPO shares, those initial public offering shares, where you buy the shares at $20, and yeah, the company exploded, and now those shares are worth a couple $1 million. It doesn't matter. Like, we the people, we still bought in early. We paid for the internet to be developed. It doesn't matter that it's a lot more valuable now. We bought those early shares by paying for it with the tax dollars. Maybe the way to wrest control of that is to put a constitutional amendment in. I don't know. I really don't, but somehow, if we're to get out of this, somehow we need to rectify the fact that the internet belongs to the people. Not because of some free speech ideal, certainly because of that too, but it is that we paid for it. We paid for the internet. It is ours. And that has been forgotten. That has been forgotten a long time ago.
Well, either way, we'll kind of get a clearer picture on what the future is like probably by January 20th.
Jesus Christ. Yeah,
I think
I'll
that's
let you go
the
here. I feel
soonest.
like you're squirming away here. I've been keeping an eye on the viewer count, and it's starting to dip down a little bit. It wasn't dipped down until like just recently, so I kind of figured people wanted to keep listening. I as soon as that number starts diving down is when I'm like, all right, time to wrap up. But it stayed up there, and you didn't move me on, so it's your fault. But
That's okay.
if you have any other closing shots, I'll let you go after that.
All I have to say is if you haven't seen the meme with Hunter Biden with his crack pipe, and it's just a picture of him with it, and it's like this guy literally went to bed, and it looks like he tucked in his crack pipe and was all like, night, night, crack pipe. That's the funniest
the crack pipes
fucking...
are sleeping.
Yeah, night, night, crack pipe. It just goes to sleep.
Oh
Dude,
God.
I saw that. I laughed for a solid 2 minutes. I thought I was going to die.
Yeah.
It was the funniest fucking thing I've ever seen. Anyway, so that's my closing statement because
All
you
right.
gotta.
Well,
You know.
thank you so much for joining us. Any chance you want to join in tomorrow?
Quite possibly. We're gonna go look at some dinosaurs tomorrow.
Wow.
They got an animatronic dinosaur drive-through.
Oh,
So
wow.
we'll see how that goes. And
Don't let us
possibly
hold
see
you
my
back from that.
congressman. Yeah, possibly seeing my congressman to tell him, get off your ass and fucking, arrest these people.
Open invite as always. All the rest of you guys, Dyer and I will see you tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern. Have a beautiful night. Stay safe out there. Make sure you go to the grocery store and get your bread, milk, and 556. See you guys. Trevize signing off.